So, hello everybody. Welcome to the fifth episode of LPodcast'N. This week is a bit of a different one. Oh, actually, first of all, I am Xavier, and I studied history at the Uni of Manchester last year. And we're joined by Paige and by Jakub, who study physics and chemistry. So, like I was saying, it's a bit of a different one this week because what we're going to be talking about is something that I have no idea about. So I've kindly invited two STEM students who know all about the pressures and stresses of being a STEM student. So I'm going to be grilling them, interrogating them on how that's been going for them. So, hey, Paige and Jakub, do you just want to quickly introduce yourselves?
Paige, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't sure who'd go first. Hi, I'm Paige. I'm a third year chemistry student at the University of Manchester.
Yes.
My name is Jakub, as you might have heard from Xavier. I study physics, more in particular is physics with theoretical physics. And I will be sharing our thoughts today on STEM academia.
Yeah, I guess, first of all, just general interest from me, it would be what was like the main force behind you both choosing the subjects that you did. Like, I was always awful at science, and history was kind of always my favorite subject just because I just liked stories and reading and that kind of thing. What was the passion behind choosing physics and chemistry?
I'll go first. So for me, I actually always wanted to study medicine, but then basically due to issues when I was doing my A levels and stuff, it wasn't feasible for me anymore because I had to basically start again and do an extra year of A levels, and that's not really accepted by medical schools unless you have outstanding circumstances, which I kind of did have because it was due to my actual sixth form, but it was quite hard I wasn't sure how to go about proving it, and I was like, what's the point in going to all the effort of trying to prove it and stuff just to probably be told no. So I started looking elsewhere. I still wanted to do something kind of medical at the time, so I was looking at pharmacy, pharmacology, but I realized that's very specific and very almost too specific basically. And a lot of people who do pharmacology, for instance, they all want to get into the same field, so it's very competitive. And then I realized with medicine, basically one of the main A levels you need is chemistry. It's actually, I think, the one that they press for the most, I remember at the time.
Yeah.
And then I realized there's the possibility of doing medicinal chemistry. So I looked into it and I decided with chemistry, you can do a lot more. And it gives you a much wider range of opportunities, basically. So I initially came in to do medicinal chemistry, but I decided I didn't really like medicinal chemistry that much because it's a lot of organic chemistry and I prefer inorganic chemistry. At least at the time I did. So now I just do chemistry in general, and I just think it's interesting because it explains everything basically. Chemistry underpins basically everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great answer. That is a great answer.
My roadmap or my journey to study physics was quite a weird one because I always wanted to be a programmer. I was always interested in IT and computers and technology in general. And then I became very interested in virtual reality as well. But throughout the high school, something broke in me, and I found a lot of friends who were interested in physics from different schools. and like we started to go to competitions, and we actually won the young physicist tournament back in my home country. And that was like when I said to myself, oh wait, like this is something that I enjoy doing, and like I enjoy putting countless of hours into one project, and like I like the research and like being curious and ask questions. And even though like I don't think I'm any good yet, and in high school, like I was kind of like disadvantaged because like I studied something way different. Because of this the system in my country works kind of different, and I was studying IT basically and networking. I had to basically study like two like huge fields at the same time to get to uni. Because I wanted to study physics later, and it was kind of rough one, but it worked obviously. So I'm glad for that one. And yeah, I always felt like I wanted to study something or like do something in my life that would have connection to research and development. Like even the IT I was studying, I always wanted to like do something and like like research and develop something. So I mean that's my like reason why I went into physics, because I think there is a lot of fields like medicine, like it's like the best fields when you want to help people around, I would say. But like in long term, like basic research, it's really physics that pushes things around in like like when you say what we will have in 100 years, like physics is the answer usually, because
Mm.
the base research that you do that usually people don't pay attention to, and there is a lot of money. There is basically the base research is kind of laughed at because like you research something for 50 years and you still don't see the results, but then in like 80 years it turns out to be very useful. And like there is a lot of research for the past centuries that happen. Even the gravitational waves are one of the Einstein's predictions that were just basically recently discovered, right? And it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
it was about 100 years ago. So, and we might not have a use for it now, but what who knows, like maybe 100, it's kind of hard to say, to be fair, because like it sounds magnificent, right? Like in 120 years when we're not alive anymore. But
yeah,
like
yeah,
in terms of like, I mean, I think it's like the curiosity and the questioning that drives me forward, and like really it's very interesting field. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah. Very mentally stimulating subjects to be studying.
yeah, definitely.
Um, okay. I want to go back to something that Paige mentioned in talking about like the kind of the standards that they had with medicine, and not necessarily thinking that you would get in, because that was something that
Mhm.
we spoke about last week, talking about like the pressures that's put on to STEM students. Um, just talk a little bit about those pressures, how you found that at the Uni of Manchester, and what your experience has been like with that.
Um, there is definitely a pressure. I think within like just within STEM in general, within um the Faculty of Science and Engineering, like it's a general thing. Like I find like even when I was doing my A levels,
Mm.
like my friends who were doing humanities, who were doing BTEC, sort of walk past and be like, look at the people doing like biology, chemistry, and maths.
Yeah,
You're stressed, and it's like,
yeah,
yeah, I am. Um, like, um, I just think there's this pressure to do well. Like, I get imposter syndrome like no one's business. It
mm.
is pretty scary a lot of time because I'm a widening participation student, so I came in through the access program and stuff. So I already have a disadvantage in that sense, as my academic background is not as strong as others. Um, you might get comments from people being like, oh, why don't you get this maths? Like, this is like GCSE maths. And it's like, well,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know it. Or it's like, why don't you get this like concept in physical chemistry? Like, that's like GCSE physics. I didn't have a physics teacher in GCSE.
mm.
Um, I have no idea how I actually managed to get through that one. I actually had my chemistry. I remember my GCSE chemistry teacher like ran me through the triple physics content in like a day because we had no teacher or anything, and it was like the day before the exam. Um, And I think there's just this like, it's competitive. It is definitely competitive in some senses, despite not being a bell curve. My year is actually quite friendly, but there are occasional people who might want to strive like get above others and stuff, because it is possible to get your ranking, and if you're trying to get a PhD from certain institutions, your ranking does matter.
Yeah.
You need to have the top spot in some places. I don't know if history or other humanities subjects have this, but like if you get the highest grade in the year, like in like an area of chemistry, you actually get an award. You get like a cash prize. I've never got it, but like my friends have. Like you get, because it's like sponsored by like a company.
Okay.
There's just yeah, and it's always, you know, you've got to get that first. Like I don't really know anyone who is aiming for a 2-1 in STEM.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a first.
So I think that is the main difference from my experience doing history. Like, it's interesting that you mentioned imposter syndrome, because it's definitely something that I felt as well. But it's kind of like a pressure to be intellectual, not as much of a pressure to like do really well. Like if you get a 2-1, no one's gonna be like, what the hell, you're stupid. So definitely interesting how that works, and definitely understandable that as a widening participation student that you would feel like that.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, Jacob?
From my perspective, it's I also feel like the STEM students are one of the most competitive one. Whereas I would probably the most competitive one, I would put the medicine as first thing and then the STEM second. Because maybe it's like this in the UK only, because like the medicine, for example, in my country is kind of less competitive. But like that's for another discussion. But I feel like in physics, mainly in first year, what I've observed, I met a lot of tons of people. Like everybody meets a lot of tons of people in the first year, and it's like when we were doing like our workshop and stuff. Because I like my physics was very 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 like how would I describe it? It wasn't as good as the others because everybody had A levels, and like I didn't even have any final examinations from physics. I was just self-taught, like beginner physicist,
Wow.
if you will. And like my maths was, I would say my maths was solid. Mainly because I went to engineering school, so we've been like tortured with maths and stuff a lot. But one thing that I observed is that when there was a problem that I couldn't solve, and like for example the person next to me could solve, and we've been talking, like I was kind of like looked down on, and like it kind of didn't feel well. But I was just like yeah, sure, like there's people like that, and there is a lot of people like this. Like not I would say not like natural sciences general, like at the university. But it's because I feel it's because we are kind of pushed to be like everyone wants to be like, you know, get first, as already Paige said, and like we want to be the best, and like we want to be, you know, like we want to achieve something. And I think it was I don't know how this was said, like it's maybe like a societal thing, I would say, that if you get like 2-1, you're regarded as like a, you know, I don't really know, to be fair, like because me personally, I used to feel that way when I get like a worst grade on an exam, that it was very bad. Like when I get like 65, I feel bad, right? Like because like 65, like that's so bad, you know. But in the real sense, people don't acknowledge the fact that we don't have any assignments, we don't have anything except exams in the high years as well. There might be like one or two things, and there is labs as well, which is very pressing as well. Like labs are the most pressing thing at the university, even though they're like continuous thing throughout the semester. Like they are the most stressful thing that you will ever have, because the pressure of the instructors and like the expectations from us is like it's on a point like very high, and I mean, that's one of the reasons why Manchester has such a good reputation at least in the natural sciences department,
Mm.
because the pressure is real, and like, like you want to be good and you want to do well, and you want to like, because everybody here is here for that, they want to achieve something, they want to get the degree, and maybe they want to go perhaps into industry and break somewhere, or they want to pursue the PhD. And if you want to pursue PhD, usually these people are very competitive as well, and like everybody just wants to do well, and when you don't, then it can kind of feel depressing sometimes that all your peers did well, and suddenly you probably get like 10% less than the average, and then you are sad. So yeah, it's definitely about the pressure. And yeah, I'm not sure how is it on this social science side, because I never studied social sciences. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm sorry.
Nice. Yeah, go.
I was gonna say, like, the reason that like integrated masters and stuff, like the reason that they are so prevalent in STEM is because if you want to get anywhere in the kind of industry,
Yeah.
particularly including research, like you need a master's. So
Mm.
they've like integrated it. But I also think this, whilst a lot of the departments in FSE and School of Natural Sciences can be held to like a very high regard, like like we do rank quite high in like the country and stuff. It also, I think, is proven to be kind of problematic through this period of the pandemic,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
because the culture that we have is, stress is very much normalized. Like my friend said yesterday, and like it's something we always say, STEM students don't have weekends, they don't exist. And it's like, if even if like we wanted to go on like a night out like pre-COVID, it would be a miracle if we were all available, because everyone has different things. Everyone might have things they need to catch up on, or something they need to do. They might have a lab report due. They might have some other thing they need to do. They might have to catch up on lecture notes. And like through the pandemic, like obviously there's been a lot of voice from the students, from all departments across all areas of the uni, um, raising these issues. We feel overworked, we're stressed, the workload, this, that, and the other. And I'm sure that other departments have most definitely got it, but I feel like in STEM, it feels like it's expected and normal for people to just go back with, you're doing a hard degree, put up with it. And that has been used in a fair bit of defense, because if students are kind of saying the workload's too much, we're not coping, it's kind of, I feel like you definitely get the vibe that it's like, this is kind of what you signed up for. So whilst it can be great in terms of it's something that can be held in high regard, like you can be quite proud to go to Manchester because it is quite like, it's a good uni for science.
Mm.
It definitely has like its drawbacks, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So kind of in line with that, but also actually a two-part question. So going back to something that Jacob mentioned about at the start, like kind of conforming, not conforming, that's not the right word, but so kind of accepting that pressure, like feeling stupid if you got like a 65. Like first of all, how did you overcome that pressure, kind of get to grips with it? And then secondly, um, based on what you were saying, Paige, like what does, because I'm sure they've not done anywhere near the best job that they can do, what can the uni and for STEM students in particular do to, what would be the best thing to help ease that kind of stress, especially during COVID in the middle of a pandemic?
Jacob, you go first.
Oh, sure. um I can't really say for everybody, because like
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
has
of course.
different, obviously. But for what goes for me, and what I know what works for me is like small continuous assignments and like projects, and like I enjoy, like I enjoy research hands-on, and like the labs are very nice, but like also the maths and the theories behind it are very interesting as well. And I feel like just giving us like small assignments, like small tests, maybe like that have like maybe like 2-3%, but they will be like continue, like you do them like every other week. So your mark doesn't only sit, especially for this year, so your mark doesn't only sit at the, even though it's open book exam, at the end, like the last, the final exam of the semester. I never thought, like I never thought that this is fair even throughout the normal years, because some people have very good spike performance and some other people have very good continuous performance. And you can have a bad day, you can you can feel sick, there is like you can get arrangement for another date for the test, but it's usually in August, and like even the mark release is kind of late as well, so you feel kind of like you wait for the marks as well. And everything around the exams, I think it is very like spike performance oriented, and I don't really feel like that's a very good way how to measure how good somebody is. I mean, it could be it, but I sometimes I think like it's more of a measurement of like how you can cope with like a very high stress in a short time. And there's obviously people who don't have to study that much, and like they do well regardless of that. There's people who can study forever through the whole semester, and then they have one test at the end, and they kind of don't do well, and then it does its thing, like it's not very very good. I had some tests like that, like I studied like crazy and I didn't get first, which is kind of disappointing. But in terms of overcoming that, like there is this like mentality that you can set yourself to, that like also the system is set to have like you have to have spike performance and stuff like that, but at the same time the marks are not really that pressured unless you like fail, I would say. And I actually talked a lot about this with professors, and like everybody said to me that if you are applying for PhD, like for example, for the first 2 years, the marks are not really relevant, and like it starts to get relevant in third, fourth year when you do a master's, for example. And like what kind of, like the main thing that depends, like if you get admitted, is your interview and then your like final project that you did for your master's as well. But there is always that weight on the marks as well. Like let's not lie to ourselves, because like that's like the first like identification, I would say, that on the applications, for example, like say what kind of like a student you are, which is not really true entirely based on the system, that's it. But it's something that worked here for a long time, and like it's very hard to change it. And I can speak for the group of people that are like similar to me, but there might be other 50% of people who think the system is good. So it's really about opinion, I would say, and like a point of view. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. That's a great point, Jacob. I know, like a lot of people, like when they talk about decolonizing the curriculum and stuff like that, like having alternative assessment methods is one of the main points that gets brought up quite a lot. What about you, Paige? What are your thoughts?
In terms of kind of getting over that barrier of like not beating myself up for not getting a first, I still kind of do it, but it's really taken COVID and things getting very bad,
Yeah.
for me, like, for me personally, and also just for the way things are going. But it's the case for like a lot of students. The sad thing is, like, I've really been struggling through this, but like loads of people in my course we have all been saying like, we don't even know if we're going to get to do a fourth year, we don't even know if we're going to graduate. Like, we're all worrying because like the way it's weighted, and there's been no instruction of any sort of no detriment policy, that now us who are like a lot of our modules are 100% exams, a lot of them, like Jakub said. So exam season was extremely intense, because people might not even have been up to date with all the content and things like that, just because of the way things were. Like exam season is always pretty intense. Like, you know, you'll be staying up late, trying to get up early if you can manage. That you'll be going pretty hard. But I think it has been worse this semester than other semesters. And also we were given open book assessments, and we were told that that wouldn't affect the difficulty, despite it now being all application based. Because something that at least my department has always said is that it's an application based exam, but there is always a memory element. Like for physical chemistry, we have to perhaps remember equations, we have to remember derivations and things like that. So if you get into the exam and you can't remember this equation, you can't remember this derivation, you're in trouble. If you're doing organic chemistry, you need to recognize mechanisms, you need to like remember these mechanisms. I'm in my first year organic exam, I had like 50 mechanisms I counted or something ridiculous like that. Like some of them you can intuitively remember, but at least for me, it was a lot of memory work. And I feel like the time that we spend poring over these lists of mechanisms and equations, writing, rewriting them, it could have really been spent elsewhere, because it is very much memory and recall. And like Jakub said, it's like spike performance type thing. It's, you know, some people might not be as good at retaining information. You might have like not gone over that one equation enough times, and then it comes up in the exam and you need it and you've forgotten. So it's, I think that more assessments throughout the year would be useful. For chemistry, it is very lab heavy. So our labs do make up quite a large portion of it, and our lab reports. And we have some additional modules that might have assignments, at least in first and second year, but not in third year, really. But we do have our research projects. But I think definitely spreading it out more, like Jakub said, rather than just relying on that. For instance, this semester, because of COVID, I went into the exam with 5 credits in the bag, 5 credits worth of grade. That's how much I knew. And normally, even with labs, it is a lot more. So I think just having some sort of assessment throughout the semester, it can really help to reassure you, because you're like, okay, I don't have to make sure I get like 70% to get first. I only need to get X amount, or, you know, it's okay because I did well on my assignment, and that can really motivate you. But obviously, if you don't do as well in the assignment, it might do the opposite. But I think, yeah, STEM is very much examination and recall, because in real life, you would Google things, because you're not going to have an encyclopedic knowledge. So yeah,
that's a great point. And if you're from a particular background as well, you've kind of been trained in that form of learning, that form of assessment in like much more, and that's kind of like the point behind having alternative assessment methods, kind of being able to cover all aspects of learning and intelligence and that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, with thought to not go on for too long, it's already been like 35 minutes long. I'll wrap up now, but definitely even like way more that we could have said and spoke about. I know you both have spoken to me about like the uni tailoring a lot of its support towards humanities students and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that we're gonna try to do even more. But yeah, thank you both for coming along, speaking about your experiences and thoughts on being a STEM student and that kind of thing. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, I guess.